What's the purpose of the AI? That is the biggest question to ask when you're using one. I think at this point, other people tell me your opinion. Biggest thing with an AI is what was it designed to do? I've often said when it comes to AI that AI is a mess of STEM zone making. It is one of the products of STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, medicine, and math. Excuse me, science, technology, engineering, math, medicine. There we go. Thank you. It is a mess of our own making. Since we created it in these respective disciplines, and there are times that I wonder if we have thought through the ramifications of some of the things that we make. And one of the reasons for that is some of the things about you might find in the news about AI chatbots, the LLMs, and this is your chat GPTs of the world, etc. Chat GPT, Grok, Gemini, amongst others. The other, like, oh gosh, and other AIs, like, I don't have the news story pulled up, but there's been plenty of lawsuits recently regarding how AIs have unfortunately done some serious harm to kids, and parents are now suing the companies for failing to catch these in training and what have you, and the harms done to the kids. I won't go into that in depth here, but one of the alternative things that folks have been thinking about is LLMs, chatbots, being effective political persuaders. And what folks who follow this channel long enough know that I don't necessarily like science for other reasons, but this is actually a really good study that they've published recently that I wanted to bring up. Talk a little bit about. This happens to be an open access study, so I encourage you to go take a look at it, to read it yourselves. As always, it'll be linked in the description for you. The tweet from Science Magazine: even small open source AI chatbots can be effective political persuaders, according to a new science study. The findings provide a comprehensive empirical map of the mechanisms behind AI political persuasion, revealing that post-training and prompting, now model scale and personalization, are the dominant levers. Now, this is deceiving because this is actually this is actually saying the opposite of the image right here. I'm sorry, this is saying this image is saying the opposite of the text, because what they used here with scale is the computing scale here, basically going to the right here, the more computational power required for that AI. And this persuasive effect obviously going up here is more persuasive. These are standard sort of chatbots, and these are sort of more developer kind of related things. But generally, both of these lines are positive trend lines, so more persuasive with higher scale. So this is not the one, this was not the best image for them to pick to sell this, because the text is more correct than this particular image is. But fortunately, we can go over here and take a look for ourselves here. And I'm going to read some of the summaries and some of the text in here. But again, this is an article, and I don't want to let this video go too long. So I suggest you all go read it for yourselves, because it is open access, or at least I think it is. Yeah, this is open access. You can always tell with some of these things. Look up here, like in Science's case with this open access. Free access here is what it says when I hover over it. You can't see it on my thing because it's not the way my OBS is set up. But this is free access, so actually anybody can read this. This is not behind a paywall. So I encourage you, go read it. Have a good look at it yourself. I think it's an excellent piece, and I say kudos to the authors for that, because I have read a lot of crappy stuff on other topics, and this is quite good. So here's the summary from the editors about the title here: The Levers of Political Persuasion with Conversational Artificial Intelligence. And that's what we're talking about with AI chatbots. Editor summary: many fear that we are on the precipice of unprecedented manipulation by large language models, LLMs, but techniques driving their persuasiveness are poorly understood. In the initial pre-trained phase, LLMs may exhibit flawed reasoning. Their power unlocks during vital post-training, when developers refine pre-trained LLMs to sharpen their reasoning and align with users' needs. Post-training also enables LLMs to maintain logical, sophisticated conversations. Hackenberg et al., which is the name of the authors here, first author, examined which techniques made diverse conversational LLMs more persuasive across 707 British political issues. See the perspective by article. So Science also wrote a perspective to go with this article. LLMs were most persuasive after post-training, especially when prompted to use facts and evidence, information, to argue. However, information-dense LLMs produce the most inaccurate claims, raising concerns about the spread of misinformation among during rollouts of future models, and that's the editor's name there. So this was really fascinating in what they got into, and I'll get to show you the images. I think there's a better image they could have used in the tweet, but there's a whole other conversation. Let's see. Here. Okay, introduction. So this is structured abstract. You'll see, this is, I will say, for those of you wondering, most folks who read articles know about the, abstract, methods, background, introduction, conclude, well, not in that order. Abstract, introduction, methods, data, results, discussion, conclusions, acknowledgments, references, all those kinds of things are usually in here. Science, one of the things that they like to do is a structured abstract, which is longer than just the abstract and provides a little bit more information, but it isn't quite the full length of the article. So for those of you curious, this is something that Science does. Other journals, you might see some similar things of sort of extended abstracts is another name for this, but anyway. Rapid advances in artificial intelligence have sparked widespread concerns about its potential to influence human beliefs. One possibility is that conversational AI could be used to manipulate public opinion on political issues through an interactive dialogue. Despite extensive speculation, however, fundamental questions about the actual mechanisms or levers responsible for driving advances in AI persuasiveness, e.g., computational power or sophisticated training techniques, remain largely unanswered. In this work, we systematically investigate these levers and chart the horizon of persuasiveness with conversational AI. We considered multiple factors that could enhance the persuasiveness of conversational AI. Raw computer power, model scale, which we'll get into that in a second. If you saw on the image, it said flops. There's a handy glossary. Well done on the author's part. Specialized post-training methods for persuasion, personalization to individual users, and instructed rhetorical strategies. Across 3 large-scale experiments with 76,977 total UK participants, which is a damn big number, we deployed 19 large language models to persuade on 707 political issues, while varying these factors independently. We also analyzed more than 466,000 AI-generated claims, examining the relationship between persuasiveness and truthfulness. Some in the AI world, one of the things they refer to is hallucination, where an AI chatbot just makes shit up, effectively. That's one of the good reasons to look at this persuasiveness versus truthfulness thing, but also with respect to the the accuracy of the information being provided, just generally. We found that the most powerful levers of AI persuasion were methods for post-training and rhetorical strategy, prompting, which increased persuasiveness by as much as 51% and 27%, respectively. These gains were often larger than those obtained from substantially increasing model scale. Personalizing arguments on the basis of user data had a comparatively small effect on persuasion. We observed that a primary mechanism driving AI persuasiveness was information density. Models were most persuasive when they packed their arguments with a high volume of factual claims. Notably, however, we documented a concerning trade-off between persuasion and accuracy. The same levers that made AI more persuasive, including persuasion post-training and information-focused prompting, also systematically caused the AI to produce information that was less factually accurate. Our findings suggest that the persuasive power of current and near-future AI is likely to stem less from model scale or personalization and more from post-training and prompting techniques that mobilize an LLM's ability to rapidly generate information during conversation. Further, we reveal a troubling trade-off. When AI systems are optimized for persuasion, they may increasingly deploy misleading or false information. This research provides an empirical foundation for policymakers and technologists to anticipate and address the challenges of AI-driven persuasion, and it highlights the need for safeguards that balance AI's legitimate use uses in political discourse with protections against manipulation and misinformation. Okay. So that was a lot to look at here. This was the image here, but this is to make the point. Persuasiveness of conversational AI increases with model scale. This has to do with model scale. We will get in here in a moment. So this is all introductory material in here. Again, I'm not going to read the whole article today. I think it's a little too much, but I do want to read certain sections of it and make sure to get to particular images and things that are entirely relevant that didn't get mentioned in the series of tweets from Science Magazine. Academics, policymakers, and technologists fear that artificial intelligence, AI, may soon be capable of exerting substantial persuasive influence over people. Large language models, LLMs, can now engage in sophisticated interactive dialogue, enabling a powerful mode of human-to-human persuasion to be deployed at an unprecedented scale. However, the extent to which this will affect society is unknown. We do not know how persuasive AI models can be, what techniques increase their persuasiveness, and what strategies they might use to persuade people. For example, as compute resources continue to grow, models could become ever more persuasive, mirroring the so-called scaling laws observed for other capabilities, which is to say when you throw more computer power at it, it gets better. It's the shortness there, the short idea there of what that is. Alternatively, specific choices made during model training, such as the use of highly curated datasets, tailored instructions, or user personalization, might be the key enablers of ever greater persuasiveness. In this study, we set out to understand what makes conversational AI persuasive and to define the horizon of its persuasive capability. Let's see. To do so, we examined three fundamental research questions related to distinct risks. First, if the persuasiveness of conversational AI increases at a rapid pace as models grow larger and more sophisticated, this could confer substantial persuasive advantage to powerful actors who are best able to control or otherwise access the largest models, further concentrating their power. Thus, we ask, are larger models more persuasive? Research question 1. So that's the whole thing about scale. If you throw more compute power at it, does it become more persuasive? That's one of their questions. Second, because LLM performance in specific domains can be optimized by targeted post-training techniques, as has been done in the context of general reasoning or mathematics, even small open source models, many deployable on a laptop, could potentially be converted into highly persuasive agents. This could broaden the range of actors able to effectively deploy AI to persuasive ends, benefiting those who wish to perpetrate coordinated, inauthentic behavior for ideological or financial gain, foment political unrest among geopolitical adversaries, or destabilize information ecosystems. So, to what extent can targeted post-training increase AI persuasiveness? That's targeted post-training we'll get into in a minute. Third, LLMs deployed to influence human beliefs could do so by leveraging a range of potentially harmful strategies, such as by exploiting individual-level data for personalization, or by using false or misleading information with malign consequences for public discourse, trust, and privacy. So finally, what strategies underpin successful AI persuasion? Okay. Now, this is a glossary of terms. So this is the main thing here. It's the number of floating point operations a computer is doing is essentially an estimate of how powerful that computer is. The more it can do, the more powerful the computer is. The more an AI chatbot can do, the more powerful it is, the bigger the scale. Effective compute, total flops used to pre-train a model. Post-training, any training or adaptation applied after pre-training to shape model behavior. So in other words, you got the results. You want to tune it to be better, effectively, is what post-training is about. Persuasion post-training. Post-training specifically to increase persuasiveness, operationalized through SFTRM or both together. Supervised fine-tuning is SFT, reward modeling. These are ways to push it toward a particular approach. To do the better post-training on that base. Here, you'll see it come up. No post-training applied. Okay. Chat-tuned open source models fine-tuned for generic open-ended dialogue to hold post-training constant across models. Developer post-train closed source frontier models post-trained by developers using heterogeneous opaque methods. So this is kind of more open source. This is more proprietary. Open source versus proprietary. Yeah, okay. Frontier models, highly capable. Developer, post-trained proprietary model. Information density, the number of fact-checkable claims made by an AI in conversation. So this is a glossary here at the front. I highly recommend if you read this yourself, you go back and forth to look at that. So I want to get down here to some of the results. These are actually the collection of AI models that were used. In here, you'll see some that you know and a bunch that you don't. GPT-4o is ChatGPT effectively, or one of the ChatGPT models. Grok, obviously XAI. Well, not XAI, but X generally. So things like that. In figure 1, we show the estimated persuasive impact of a conversation with each LLM. Pooling across all models, we find a positive linear association between persuasive impact and the logarithm of model scale, which is to say, right here, persuasiveness of conversational AI increases with model scale. In other words, the more compute it has, more computing power it has, the more it has particularly expended compute power on pre-training, the more persuasive it tends to be, according to the persuasiveness scale, which is in the methods of the paper, by the way, if you want to know what that is exactly. Given these results, we next more systematically examine the effect of post-training on persuasiveness. We focus on post-training specifically to increase model persuasiveness. We call this persuasiveness post-training in here. And they use 2 different methods in here. In here, they have those 2 different approaches to do that. In here with, I'm guessing, I'm not sure the specifics of this, that it didn't end up being working on all things, but it's an answer that makes sense here, that if you train a model to be persuasive, it's going to be more persuasive. So this is not a finding that necessarily shocks me at all, with exception right here. You know, this is the three of the ChatGPT models, I believe. Yeah, 4.5, 4.0, and 3.5 Turbo. Grok is in here along with 4.0 again, and yeah, a couple of the different versions of 4.0 as they were released, and GPT 4.5. So those are. It's kind of no surprise to me that if you train a model to be more persuasive with the post-training, particularly, then it becomes more persuasive. I mean, kind of not a surprise. This is not, this is post-training without focusing on persuasiveness. So let's see. Now they get to the fun part, which is the strategies underpinning effective AI persuasion. So oh gosh, this is going to be hard to see all in one thing because it is a big graphic. I wonder if I can zoom out just a touch here to see it better. That's a little bit better, at least for folks here. So that's not going to be easy, but let me go down here to the figure caption so you can at least see that a little bit. The title here is Persuasion Increases with Information Density in all this, which is to say the number of claims made it more persuasive to the participants in the study. Because remember, this was people who were involved with this in looking at some of these claims, like 76,000 or so participants in the UK. So when it comes to persuasive effect, going this way on this one, with more information, it went up. With more information in here, information density, persuasive effect, this is pretty consistent. There's a couple of different groups that they had things in here, but that's not the main point with this. All of these trend lines are positive. That the more dense the information, the more claims that it was making as part of its responses to people, the more persuasive it was considered. Post-training on persuasion, main effect of post-training on information density. So this is to say when you were doing more, if you're doing both the post-training and the making it very information dense, it ended up going up in this corner, which is to say there's positive effect from both of those with that. And S1C and D here, hold on a second. Persuasive advantage of the most persuasive models over GPT-4o is largest when they're information prompted. Information prompting also causes disproportionate increases in information density among the most persuasive models. See supplementary materials. So this has to do with the prompting, specifically whether or not you were prompted for certain things. If you do prompt with information, it becomes more persuasive, um, that kind of thing. So that is where it gets really interesting. Now, I can understand you couldn't really put this in here, but how accurate is the information provided? Now, this is the interesting thing here, where it comes back to what they were saying, I believe, to certain degrees here in the thing, but also in the abstract, about whether or not it mattered how much of the information was accurate. So let's read this section a little bit, because this was the fun one to me. How accurate is the information provided by the models? The apparent success of information-dense rhetoric motivates our final analysis. How factually accurate is the information deployed by LLMs to persuade? To test this, we used a web search. Used a web search-enabled LLM tasked with evaluating the accuracy of claims. Wait, what? To test this, we used a web search-enabled LLM tasked with evaluating the accuracy of the claims on a 0 to 100 scale made by AI in the large body. Do I have that right, that they used an AI to evaluate the factual accuracy of the AI? No offense, but that just seems weird to me that you would do that. But anyway, the procedure was independent. Oh, well, okay. Human fact checkers. Okay, good. Good. I'm glad there were some humans involved there, but that does answer my first question. Overall, the information provided by AI was broadly accurate. Pooling across studies and models, the mean accuracy was 77 out of 100, and 81% of claims were rated as accurate, accuracy greater than 50 out of 100. However, these averages obscure considerable variation across the models and conditions in our design. In Figure 4a, we plot the estimated proportion of claims rated as accurate against model scale. In the supplementary materials section 2.7, we show that the results below are substantively identical, if we instead analyze average accuracy on the full 0 to 100 scale. Among chat-tuned models where post-training is held constant while scale varies, larger models were substantially more reliable. Which is to say, the more processing power behind it, the more reliable it seemed to be. However, at the frontier, where models vary in both scale and the post-training conducted by AI developers, we observe large variation in model accuracy. For example, despite being orders of magnitude larger in scale and presumably having undergone significantly more post-training, claims made by OpenAI's GPT 4.5 were rated inaccurate greater than 30% of the time, a figure roughly equivalent to our much smaller chat-tuned version of Llama 3.1-8b. They really need some more friendly names, but anyway. Unexpectedly, we also find that GPT 3.5, a model released more than 2 years earlier than GPT 4.5, made 13 percentage point fewer inaccurate claims. And that's where this comes. Mean proportion of accurate claims. This goes with scale right here. This is actually slightly negative. Like I was saying, when you're way out here at the frontiers, there seems to be an odd inflection point here if you tried to do those, hook those things together. But this is interesting. It's the things that made the AI more persuasive tended to also, because remember, scale was also positively correlated with persuasiveness, right? Here, it was a very good linear line, but when you got here, it was different. When you got here in this one, it's different for proportion accurate. That said, look at the scale, 40%, 80-ish% inaccuracy, all right? Just keep that one in mind as you're looking at it. Persuasion, PPT, okay. This is the mean proportion of accurate claims prompted and not. Mean effective accuracy, PPT, accuracy on persuasion. See, this is the one where it gets interesting. Post-trained right here, right? So post-training, but this is the mean effect of the post-training on accuracy. When you're training specifically for persuasion of this LLM, you may get an awful lot of persuasion, but the accuracy score is way, way down. That's actually where it gets really interesting to me, is when you're actually gaining in the persuasion specific post training, where you want it to be more persuasive. And that's what you're rewarding the model for. You're rewarding the model for being more persuasive, not for being more accurate. Those are two very different things. And something to be very, very cautious about is, what is that? I've said this to other folks with other types of models. What is it designed to do? You have to have very, very clear documentation on what is it designed to do, because if it's designed to do something that maybe not what you're looking for, like you're looking for maybe truthful information about something, well, maybe something that was post-trained to be more persuasive isn't going to be very accurate in telling you the truth about something. So that is a very interesting finding in and of itself. I would love to see that highlighted more, because it does go to some concerns and some problems, right? So this is the last section that I want to read here, just to highlight what the impact is of pulling every lever at once. So scale, post-training, information density. What do you do? What happens when you do them all at the same time to that persuasive score? Finally, we examined the effect of a conversational AI designed for maximal persuasion, considering all features or levers examined in our study: model, prompt, personalization, and post-training. This can shed light on the potential implications of the inevitable use of frontier LLMs for political messaging in the wild, where actors may do whatever they can to maximize persuasion. For this analysis, we used a cross-fit machine learning approach to identify the most persuasive conditions, and then 2, estimate their joint persuasive impact out of samples. See materials and methods for details. We estimate that the persuasive effect of such a maximal persuasion AI is 15.9 percentage points on average, which is 69.1% higher than the 9.4 percentage points average condition that we tested, and 26.1 percentage points among participants who initially disagreed with the issue. See, this is really interesting, because it's higher for people who disagreed with the issue the AI was talking about. Think about that. 74.3% higher than the 15.2 percentage points average condition. These effect sizes are substantively large, even relative to those observed in other recent work on conversational persuasion with LLMs. We further estimate that in these maximal persuasion conditions, AI made 22.5 fact-checkable claims per conversation versus 5.6 on average, and that 30% of these claims were rated inaccurate versus 16% on average. So when you absolutely maximize all the factors, yes, it's more persuasive, but it's also more inaccurate. It's what it seems to be. This is what I'm going to say. If you're using an LLM, you better damn well know what it was designed for. There needs to be, my personal thing with this is, like, you need an awful lot of open metadata, open ethics and information here about how each other and every single LLM was created and what the implications are, and it has to be in a human readable thing, so folks can know what the hell they're getting themselves into when they use one of these things. That should be an ethics baseline. I know it is for most anything else that's any other model that's created in the scientific community anywhere in the world. That's just baseline standard. It needs to be the same for any LLM that's created, any video model that's created, anything. Together, these results shed light on the level of persuasive advantage that could be achieved by actors in the real world seeking to maximize AI persuasion under current conditions. They also highlight the risk that AI models designed for maximum persuasion, even without explicitly seeking to misinform, this point taken, may wind up providing substantial amounts of inaccurate information. Let me read that one more time. They also highlight the risk that AI models designed for maximum persuasion, even without explicitly seeking to misinform, may wind up providing substantial amounts of inaccurate information. What's the purpose of the AI? That is the biggest question to ask when you're using one, I think, at this point. Other people, tell me your opinion. Biggest thing with an AI is, what was it designed to do? Was it designed to persuade? Then you should be dubious, perhaps, is what I'm getting out of this particular study. When I think about it, it's like, be dubious if it's something that's designed to persuade. I've been a big fan, like I said, of need to have metadata and understanding of information, just even the basics of what it was designed to do. And I know that's not necessarily the most comfortable thing for some proprietary models in particular, but at the same time, I would like to know what the heck I'm getting myself into before I use one of these things. And so I would like to know things like this. Well, was it post-trained? What was it post-trained to do? What's the scale it was run on? Give me tests of information density. Run these kinds of tests on it. Run standardized tests on these things. Like in other disciplines, we have model intercomparison projects. Well, where's the giant AI model intercomparison project at this point? That's the kind of thing I think we need nowadays when I'm looking at the AI world. But that's my 2 cents. As always, this article will be linked for you in the description. I encourage you to read it. I encourage you to think about it. Think about what it means, because it's really, really fascinating. And kudos to the authors again. I think they did a great job with this article. And I'm glad to have read it and learned a little bit more. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way out the door. Comment on the video. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel. All that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian. Stay curious.